Okay, so in this video, what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at how to do a few other little incidental things with diagramming. So now we're going to click back on our sketch, and we see the sketch that we were working on before. Excuse me. Now we want to complete our living area here, our main component. And so if it was just a regular box, we just click on our box there, and then we can use our snap tool, which is using our left arrow in this case, if the back wall, if it was just a random box or a regular standard box. So we'll just snap. It does the red dotted line to our next available spot, next available wall, and we hit enter. And then we continue down. We hit our down snap tool. Now, because this was our next available wall, it stopped at 13 feet. That's not where we want to finish that wall. We want to get it all the way down to complete the component. So we hit the snap tool a second time, and then it goes to that, to the next intersection or the next wall. And then we hit it a third time, and it completes the box. Yet it's not completed. Remember, we need to actually hit enter after each wall in order to complete it. So now our area type pop-up box comes back. And so this is living space. We're going to call this a one-story crawl space. So what do we do again? We hit living area. It's a standard construction. It's not bi-level, tri-level, mobile home, nothing else. It's standard. And so now it gives you our foundation options. Basement, crawl space, overhang, pier, slab, hillside, suspended. This is a crawl space. All right, and so it's a one-story. If it was a 1.5 story, a 2-story, 2.5, we can choose any of those options. But this is a one-story. So we hit select. So it gives us our tag, puts it right there in the middle, and it's 1,200 square feet. So that's pretty basic on how to complete that. But let's say we're like, oh no, we labeled it wrong. So do we have to get rid of the whole component and start over? No. Down here you have your undo. It's these arrow keys. We have our undo and our redo buttons. So we just hit undo, and it takes away the last wall, and coincidentally takes away our component identification. So now we just go back to our draw tool, and then we finish out our component again, and we say it was actually a one-story basement. So we hit living area, standard, basement this time, one story. So again, our square footage is the same, but the foundation is different. Instead of being a crawl space, it is now a basement. But let's say that on the back side of our house, remember our front is always down towards the bottom. Our back side of our home, there is a basement garage coming off the back, and it goes to 16 foot. So how do we draw that? Well, we could just draw another box, but then we'd have to do all kinds of corrections and whatnot. A simple way to do that is it's 16 foot wide, all right, and 20 foot deep. So we go find our 16 foot marker. So that's 21 foot, as we mentioned in our last video. Our measurements, we just click on the wall. Remember, this little white dot on the 30 foot wall indicates 15 foot because it's halfway between that, in the middle of that 30 foot wall. So the 16 foot would be right about there. And so what we can do is if we go down to our number keypad, we type in 20, and then we hit our down arrow key because the basement garage is in this section of the home right here. All right, so we hit our down arrow key, and it's going to go down 20 feet. We hit enter. And right now we're looking at this thinking it's going to be a complete mess. But we know it's 16 foot over. So we could type in 16 foot, but we want to use our snap tool. So we hit our left arrow key. And again, it goes to the nearest wall. And we hit enter to complete it. And there, it creates two different components. So when you have a component that's completed and you need to knock out that component, so to speak, if you draw another box inside of it, it will actually separate the two boxes. You can go to your select tool, and let's say you need to move any component. If you go to your select tool, you can select that component, and then you can actually move it. And so that allows you to easily adjust where components are on the page and how they are adjacent to each other. But in this instance, we want to grab our identifier, and notice how it's just a slight too big for it. Well, if we click on it and then we hold, this little pop-up box comes up. We hit our more button. Then it gives us all these options. We can increase the font size, decrease the font size, which is what we want to do. We can rotate it, we can flip it, we can flip the labels and whatnot. But we want to decrease our font size, and let's see if we can get it inside the box. All right, a little bit. Let's see if we can get it a little bit better. All right, we'll go decrease font size one more time, and there. And so we can leave that 320. All right, so we have our labels. And if we get it centered, it makes it look a little bit nicer. We can get rid of that 20 foot. Since we have this 20 foot here indicating this wall. And so we have a 1-story basement. And then this is a 1-story basement. Now we say, well, why are they both the same? Well, they're not. So again, we need to change the basement garage to actually read basement. I should have did that before I reduced the font size. So how do we do that? Similar to before when we made a mistake in identifying our main component. We select a wall. We're on our select tool. We select a wall. We know it's selected because it highlights that blue color. Okay, and then we just go down to our trash can. And our trash can right here in the middle. And we hit the trash can and it removes the identifier, and the component now becomes open again. So now we go back to our draw tool. We can pull over, or we can do the snap tool. I'll just draw over. And then, so now again, it wants to complete that component. What is it? Well, it's living area, but now we have a little bit different of an identifier. This is living area with a basement garage. So we select that option. That's none of these other specialty options. It's a standard home. And then now it gives us our story option. So it's still a 1-story. And it wants to know how big the car garage is. So it's a 1-car garage. So again, we're back at this where our identifier is too big for our component. And in this situation, I'm not going to shrink it because it would make it unreadable. However, we want to do it the same way as we popped out our open porch here on the right hand side. To make it a little bit easier, we're going to pan over. So get your do your 2-finger pinch zoom and move over. Then go back to your select button. Click on the basement tag there. And notice it turns blue when you've grabbed it. And then now you can move it. And the same thing with the square footage, we move it up. We get it into a nice clear area. Now we hit other. Remember, we want to get our interior tool. And we want to be able to identify that this tag works with this basement garage, this little box here. So we just click and drag. So now we hit our back button and it clearly identifies it. When it's viewed on the form, these tags will be they'll be visible. All right, so that's a basic way of being able to knock out a portion of the home that is inside your diagram. You never want to draw two components on top of each other. Next thing we're going to look at is how to do angled walls. You might have an overhang, or you might have just a angle to a particular wall. You see that a lot on decks or on additions on the sides of the home and whatnot. All right, so now we're going to open up our diagram again, and we're going to use our 2-finger zoom. So we pinch zoom in so we can get close to this wall, this 20-foot wall here. This 20-foot wall is going to have a pop out that is a overhang section. It doesn't have a foundation. It just sticks out the side of the home. All right. And so just like we would measure an overhang, we would square it off. So let's say our angle, not our overhang. We would measure an angle. Let's say our angle was 3 foot by 3 foot. So, for instance, let's say it starts at 5 foot. So we measure up and we see it starts at 5 foot. So we want to find 5 foot along this wall. Again, we know this white dot is 10 foot. So right in the middle is going to be somewhere that's 5 foot. That's 6 foot. There's 5 foot. So again, we said it was a 3 foot by 3 foot angle. So it goes out. So we go to our 3-foot tool, our number pad, and then we find the number 3. We select it. We go to our left arrow key, and we go out. So it goes out 3 foot. And we know it goes up 3 foot as well. So, because we did that measurement. And so we go back to our number pad. And now we go to our arrow key, or arrow pad. And so we hit up. So notice I do this before I hit enter. If I was going to complete this wall, I would hit enter and then it would become a black line. However, this wall is not complete because that's not what it looks like. It's an angle. So now before we hit enter, we hit our 3, and then we hit our arrow pad up. Automatically, it makes the angle, and then it changes our calculation of our square foot, our distance. So now that is our proper angle. So once we have that, then we hit enter, and it automatically sketches it in there. Now let's say it is 6 foot. Our length of our wall is 6 foot. So we go to our number pad, we hit 6, then we hit up. And then now we hit enter, and we need to complete it. So then we go 3 foot in, back towards the main portion of the home, and then 3 foot up. And then we hit enter again. And so that is the shape of our overhang. However, we still need to complete it. How do we do that? We go back to our arrow pads. We just hit our snap tool down. And again, we always have to complete walls even when they touch the adjacent structure or the adjacent component. And we always have to hit enter to actually finish the wall. So again, it's the red dotted line, but we hit enter to complete it. And then it pops up our component types. So again, it's living area. We click that. It's nothing special. It's just a standard component. And then it wants our foundation type. Well, this was an overhang. So we select overhang, and it's only 1 story. And there it is. Voila. So again, we go back to our select tool, and we need to clean it up a little. So we selected we're going to select our overhang. We just click on it, it becomes blue. That tells us that we have identified it correctly, or that we have grabbed it correctly. And then we go and we click back on it, hold, and then we pull outside of the component. Do the same thing with our square footage. And what do we have to do? Well, we have to get our interior line tool again, which is over here in our other tab. Go down, we hit our interior, and we click and drag. Very good. Now we have our overhang that has angled walls. So you can follow the same basic principles when dealing with any angled wall or like an angled deck or anything. Remember, square off when you measure the component, square off the angle as you would if you were measuring it when you're drawing it. And we do 3 foot out, 3 foot up, and then it actually makes the angle for you. It's a pretty simple process. You just have to remember those steps. Okay, that's going to do it for this basic tutorial on how to diagram with Phoenix Mobile.